Okay, so this is Denise Dixon, DBA Danny Grandson LLC, with Miss Adina Howard, recording for a book tentatively titled Adina Howard Real Raw. Miss Howard, you give consent for the book to be written and for you to be recorded?
Yes.
Okay. So I wanted us to talk about your dad today because I think we've kind of jumped over him a little bit, and we've talked about some of the relationships and the role that he might have played in the relationships, even in his absence. So let's start from the beginning about who your dad was to you and when he stopped being that.
I think when I was younger, my dad was my hero. Uh, he was, from my birth, so to speak, to up until about 9, he was there. And then, of course, when my parents divorced, he wasn't. And then we would see him periodically when my mother would bring us over to the house. But yeah, he was my hero. Loved him to life, and just he was, the first man I ever fell in love with, and the first man to ever disappoint me. And to think that, when did that happen? When did that all change? I think it all really started changing when I was in my teens. Not exactly sure when in my teens, but he became an addict. And at some point, I remember someone telling me that he was an addict, and of course I was not believing that at all. And it wasn't until I was early 20s, probably, let's see, Freak Like Me came out in 95 and I was 21, 96, 97, so between 22 and 24, somewhere in there, I ended up bringing him out to Las Vegas, where I lived at the time, and that's when I recognized that he was actually an addict. I actually saw it, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, and it was something that just, it broke me down, broke my heart, made me cry, and it was just like, oh, shit, this is real.
Okay. So let's go back a little bit. You said that he was your hero. So describe all your elements of a hero.
He was always there. He loved on me, doted on me. I could talk to him about anything, of course, whatever little girls talk about. I'm not sure what that anything is because I don't remember any of the conversations. I think what I do remember for the most part is, and it's so crazy because I don't remember much for whatever reason. But I just remember him, with the big wheels, him buying us big wheels and just coming home and playing with us and, of course, disciplining us when he needed to. It's so, again, it's to have a visual of exactly when, what, and why, and all of that stuff is. I cannot really pull up that information. I'm one of those people, we've talked before, like my memory when it comes to certain things is just, I don't know if it's buried or I just don't remember. But I do know because he was the first man in my life, he was my everything.
So it sounds like you can't remember the specific details, but you can remember the feeling, and
right.
The feelings that you describe are like, they sound safe and secure and loving and nurturing and overall positive.
Right.
Okay. All right. And up until I'm sorry, your parents got divorced at what age?
I think I was around. My mother left him. I think of when I was around 9 or 10.
Okay. And what was the relationship with you and him when your mom left? Was he still coming to see you?
No. When we left, um, that was when his presence was scarce, and my mother would bring us to see him more often than not. Than him coming to see us, I should say. So it was always her making the effort to make sure that we saw him versus him putting forth the effort of him coming to see us.
Was he an addict back then?
Yes.
Was that the reason your mom left?
It was no, not that I'm aware of. I think the reason why she left was because he was cheating on her for the second time.
Okay.
At least I'm aware of the second time. I'm pretty sure there are multiple times that he cheated on her, but this particular situation, I knew that he had been with somebody else, but I actually did not know at the time it was because he had cheated on her. I thought, as a little girl, I just remember that the day that we left, that there was a lot of commotion going on, and then we ended up moving, and it was crazy because she packed up her gremlin and packed up and put everything that she could in the gremlin, and then put me and my sisters in it, and then we ended up at a hotel. And then from the hotel, I believe we ended up at a homeless shelter for a little bit. And then we ended up getting our place.
As a child, did you understand what was going on?
No.
So what you understand now is what you figured out as an adult or what was told to you?
What I figured out as an adult. And my mother probably did explain some of it to us, but I don't recall that.
Okay, so your hero sounds like he
ran into some kryptonite.
Yeah. And it sounds like he abandoned you in the process.
Yeah, I told him many moons ago that I have abandonment issues. I felt like he abandoned me and neglected and rejected me. Yeah, he knows. He's definitely aware of that. And I'm aware of that because I've had abandonment issues for a while.
And between the time your mom left him, how many years was it before a visiting kind of frequent relationship occurred with you two?
When he actually put forth effort?
Yes.
Shit. A few years ago.
Okay.
But then I would actually have to come because he didn't have a vehicle and whatnot. I would have to come in. I would have to go to him versus him being able to come to me.
So in a way, did you kind of feel like he died even though he was alive?
No. I wouldn't necessarily say that. I wouldn't even know how to describe it. It's just whoever, this person was. And it's interesting because my Byron Ellis Walker is very brash, very forward, very honest in his speaking when it comes to certain things, or at least his perception of what it is. I remember him telling me that, basically he told my mother if she left him, he was not going to pay child support. So I guess when it came to not paying child support, that also meant he wasn't going to put forth the effort to be in our lives, so to speak, because that he definitely did not do. Because his addictions took precedence over his children.
Do you remember feeling angry as a child about his non-involvement?
Mm-mm.
Do you remember just accepting it?
Yeah. I think it was just, for me, it was just okay. I mean, there wasn't much I could do. When I saw him. He talked to us. He loved on us. And he was, if he saw any bruises or cuts or anything on my legs or anything, he would be quick to tell me, little girls do not have scraped up knees and all that stuff. So he still, to the best of his, ability, tried to impart some type of wisdom.
What made you able to accept it without the anger? What do you think made you, have that level of maturity to just kind of accept that it was what it was? Can you hear me? Hello?
Are you still there?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Uh-oh. Hey,
can you hear me?
Oh, now I can.
Okay.
I was like, did she say something? Because if she did, I didn't hear a word.
Yeah, I did. I was asking why do you think you were able to accept it as opposed to going through a process of being angry about it?
I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you. Break it down for me, therapist. Because I'm clueless on that one.
That's a question, because I think it's more likely, especially at such a young age, that there would be some emotion unless you had already had situations and circumstances that you had to accept, and so that was a natural part of your functioning.
I think when he left, I think when my mother left, I think that at that point in time, because again, I'm not aware of what I was privy to when it came to a lot of their fighting. I just remember the last day, that like the day that it was done and she was over it. So I just remember her packing us up, rolling us out. I remember the day that I could hear, the police came to the door and he took me across the street to my grandmother's house, and I could hear all of the clashing and whatever was going on behind me when he was walking me forward towards my grandmother's house. And I remember this man holding my hand, and I looked back, and he looked down at me, and I looked up at him, and he was like, if I can recall correctly, everything is going to be okay. I'm going to take you to your grandmother's house. And he walked me over to my grandmother's house. And that's all I really remember. And then I just remember her packing up everything and us getting in the vehicle and dipping out. And that was the last I can recall of living in that house.
And what age was that?
And that was when I was around 9.
Okay. And when did you start hearing, how soon after that do you remember people started to refer to him as an addict or tell you that he was an addict?
When I was probably, I think it was about 15, 16.
Okay, so between 9 and 15, how many times did you see him? Did you see him a few times?
Did I recall seeing him? My mother would bring us over to see him over at my grandmother's house, which was, like I said, we lived literally across the street from her. I recall once or twice, but I do recall one time.
Okay.
And that was because, we were in the back seat. I was in the back seat, and he was, he was talking to me, and he was just telling me, what little girls should or shouldn't do.
Okay.
And that was pretty much it. And that's the one time I recall, seeing him.
Do you remember what he said little girls should and should not do?
He told me I needed to wash my hands because I had been playing. With my cat, our cat Fufa.
Mhm.
And he basically was like, "Why do your hands stink?" And I was like,